Welcome back to Past and Present, the place where we connect yesterday's habits to today's reality. Today we're tackling a question that sounds simple, but hides a web of culture, policy, marketing, and technology. Why did so many Americans get bigger in the 1980s? The truth might surprise you because it's not just about willpower or fast food, it's about how the entire food and lifestyle environment shifted in the late 70s and 80s in ways that quietly nudged people to eat more, move less, and misunderstand what healthy even meant. Let's start with the myth. The easy story says Americans ate junk and stopped exercising. Sure, that happened to a degree, but that's like blaming the last domino instead of asking who set up the row. What actually changed in the 80s is the scaffolding of everyday life. What was on supermarket shelves, what ads told families to buy, what schools served, how neighborhoods were built, and what official nutrition advice said to do. Put these together and you get a powerful push toward higher calorie intake, especially from refined grains and added sugars, often disguised as healthier choices. Rewind to the late 1970s. Nutrition headlines were all about fat. Saturated fat and cholesterol were cast as public enemy number one. That message filtered into the 80s as a simple slogan: eat low fat. Food companies moved fast. Shelves filled with low fat, light, and cholesterol-free labels. But there was a catch. If you take fat out of a cookie or yogurt, you usually need to add something back to make it taste good. That something was often sugar or refined starch, so people felt virtuous eating low-fat snacks that were still highly processed and energy-dense. The result? Calories were easier to ingest without feeling full, and the halo of healthy encouraged larger portions. At the same time, a quiet ingredient swap was sweeping through beverages and packaged foods. Alternative sweeteners like high-fructose corn syrup and other cheap sugars became widespread, particularly in soft drinks. The science on how different sugars behave is complex, but the practical effect was straightforward. Sweetened drinks got cheaper and more common, and liquids don't fill you up the way food does. You could add hundreds of calories a day without noticing. Soda at lunch, a fruit drink after school, a refill at the movies. The 80s normalized sweetness and the constant availability of it. Now mix in the microwave revolution. The 1980s were the first decade when microwaves became standard in middle-class kitchens. That changed how families cooked and how companies formulated food. Dinner went from something simmered to something zapped. Convenience meals needed to be shelf-stable or freezer-friendly, which meant more refined grains, sodium, sugars and fats engineered to taste great after 4 minutes on high. For busy parents, and there were more two-income households than ever, this was a lifesaver. It was also a new pipeline for cheap, ultra-palatable calories that required almost no effort to prepare. Portions were creeping up too. Even before the 90s supersized era, the 80s saw a steady upsizing of muffins, bagels, movie popcorn, and soda cups. Restaurants learned that larger portions were a cost-effective way to signal value. At the grocery store, family size and party size normalized bigger packages that disappeared quickly once opened. Humans are visual eaters. If the muffin is twice as big as the old standard, we still call it one muffin. That's a stealth doubling of energy intake at breakfast. Let's talk about the school and snack environment. The 80s were a golden age of sugary breakfast cereals, cartoon mascots, and after-school snacks engineered to hit the bliss point. That perfect combination of sugar, salt, and fat that keeps you reaching for just one more. Children and teens were a prime target for advertising, especially around Saturday morning TV and after-school programming. The result was a generation trained to associate treat foods with comfort, reward, and fun. And because a lot of this was framed as low-fat, it didn't register as indulgent. Physical activity culture was also changing in two opposite directions. On one hand, the aerobics boom, Jane Fonda tapes, neon leg warmers and home fitness equipment all exploded. On the other hand, the built environment tilted more heavily toward car-first living. Suburbs spread, commutes lengthened, walking to stores or school became less common, and kids spent more time indoors with cable TV, home consoles, and VCRs. Overall daily movement, the unglamorous calories you burn walking, climbing stairs, and doing chores, likely went down even as exercise became a product you had to buy time and gear for. There's also the economics of food. In the 80s, staple ingredients used in processed foods became cheaper relative to income, while fresh, perishable foods were comparatively more expensive and time-consuming. When your budget and schedule are squeezed, shelf-stable foods that taste great last forever and take 5 minutes win the shopping cart. That's not a moral failure, that's a rational response to constraints, and a market designed to make that choice easy. The restaurant landscape shifted too. Chain restaurants optimize menus for consistency, speed, and repeatable pleasure. Fryers, buns, sauces, and fountain drinks made it simple to deliver a reliable, craveable experience. And because many entrees came bundled with fries and a large drink, the default meal turned into a calorie bomb even if you didn't intend it. It's telling that in the 80s, diet often meant swapping in a diet soda while keeping the rest of the meal the same. Now here's the twist that really challenges the myth. Much of this was driven by advice to be healthier. Low-fat messaging nudged people toward bagels over eggs, fat-free frozen yogurt over nuts, and dry cereal over whole food breakfasts. Look closely and you'll notice a pattern. Foods that were easy to market as low-fat were also easy to mass-produce, brand, and ship. Whole foods like fish, legumes, or produce don't wear health claims as easily. The label drove the lunchbox. Let's walk through a typical 1980s weekday and watch how the calorie creep happens. Morning rush. A big bowl of low-fat cereal with skim milk and a glass of orange drink. Maybe a toaster pastry if you're late. That's a lot of refined carbs and sugar before 9 a.m. Lunch at school or the office. White flour sandwich, chips, and a soda because diet culture says fat is bad. But nobody warned you about liquid sugar. After school, microwaved pockets or a healthy granola bar. More sugar and refined grains in a convenient wrapper. Dinner. A frozen entree and garlic bread, maybe a salad drowned in light dressing. TV time, popcorn from a bag, and a tall, sweetened drink because the commercial told you it's a better choice than ice cream. None of these look outrageous. But together, they add up day after day, and they don't leave you very full. Another under-the-radar factor was how we learned to eat. Grazing took off in the 80s. Snack aisles expanded, vending machines proliferated, and offices and schools made food constantly available. When you snack because food is there, not because you're hungry, your internal signals get quieter. It becomes normal to eat by the clock, the screen, or the package. And then there's the social script. Parties, sports events, birthdays, and even office meetings were increasingly tied to processed snack foods and sugar-sweetened beverages. Hospitality meant abundance, and abundance meant larger bowls of chips, bigger sheet cakes, and coolers full of cans. Culturally, saying no felt antisocial. Marketing leaned into that with slogans about sharing, fun, and being part of the group. So was the 1980s the moment everything changed? It was more like the hinge. The late 70s set the nutrition narrative. The 80s embedded new products and habits into daily life, and the 90s amplified the portions and the convenience. But the core drivers, low-fat logic that favored sugar and refined carbs, cheap sweetness in beverages, portion creep, microwavable convenience, car-centric living, and relentless marketing, were firmly established by the end of the 80s. If you're thinking, okay, but what about personal responsibility? Yeah, I'm sure individual choices matter. They just matter a lot less when the entire system is optimized to steer you toward overeating. If your environment constantly offers low satiety calories in large, convenient packages, and if the official advice makes those calories feel virtuous, most people will drift in the same direction. That's not a character flaw. That's human nature meeting industrial design. What's the shocking truth is that the 1980s didn't simply make Americans lazy or greedy. The decade rewired the defaults. It taught families to equate low fat with healthy, sweet with normal, bigger with better, and convenience with progress. It flooded homes, schools, and workplaces with foods engineered to be easy to buy, easy to store, and easy to overeat. And then wrapped all of it in bright labels and feel-good messaging. By the time you realize the game is rigged, the habits are already automatic. Here's the historical takeaway. When you look back at those neon boxes of cereal, the first wave of microwave dinners, the light cookies, the new soda flavors, and the family minivan pulling into the drive-thru, you're not just seeing nostalgia. You're seeing the architecture of an eating culture that still shapes today. The labels have changed. Today it might be protein, gluten-free, or organic, but the lesson from the 80s is to be skeptical of health halos and pay attention to the basics: minimally processed foods, reasonable portions, and an environment that makes better choices, the easy ones. Before we wrap, one last perspective shift. When you picture the 1980s, don't only imagine the food court. Imagine the time pressures on parents, the 2 jobs needed to pay the mortgage, the long commutes, the suburban streets without sidewalks, the TV that never turned off, the vending machine at every rink and office, and the school fundraiser selling candy bars. In that world, the high-calorie choice was the path of least resistance. The surprise isn't that Americans got bigger. The surprise is how quickly culture, policy, and industry lined up to make that outcome likely. If you grew up in the 80s, you probably remember the taste of that healthy, low-fat snack, the crinkle of the microwave meal wrapper, the condensation on a big cup of soda, and the commercials that made it all feel normal. That's the story we try to tell on Past and Present. Not just what we ate, but why we ate it, and how yesterday's small shifts became today's big consequences. Thanks for watching. If you want more deep dives into the everyday history that shaped us, hit subscribe, share this with someone who remembers neon-coloured cereal, and tell us in the comments, what 80s health food do you remember most, and what was really in it?